Welcome. You're listening to Entertain You Radio, and we are part of the Radio Ear Network and Society Bites Network. I'm Jeannie Corcoran, your Sarasota County Film Commissioner, and our Film Commission is very honored and privileged to be a part of bringing you this show called Entertain You, like university. And we're going to bring you lots of different kinds of people that are in the arts and entertainment, from writers and directors and producers and actors to all sorts of creative composers and novelists and bloggers and podcasters and graphic novelists and teachers of film and, comedians and live theater and so forth. So you'll always find something interesting, different, new, and yet it will all have the common thread of entertaining you. So thanks for listening. And with me right now, I actually have three people in the studio. I have David Taylor, a marvelous veteran friend of mine who is also a great photographer and a perpetual student. He's in college right now. He's a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart awardee. And Dave, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You are welcome. And we have with us Mia Martin, and Mia has worked with me in my film commission on occasion, and she has an interesting background in film production, television production, indie film kinds of things. And her husband, Jay McDermott, make sure I get everybody's name right here. Jay has joined us because he's part of a project all three of them are working on. We're going to talk about called Victory Challenge.
Victory Journey.
I'm sorry. Can we edit that out? Okay. Called Victory Journey. And I guess we'll just start right there. I met Kim Galway, who's a woman whose grandfather is at the core of this story. And Kim had done a pitch at a pitch conference that our film commission had called Pitch Strong. And it was all about the books that have been written about the subject, and her grandfather and his, I'm not going to tell you too much, but his activities during the war, very unusual background. I'm going to let the team here, 3 of 5 filmmakers that are working with Kim Galway, tell you more about it. So, David, how did you get involved in this, and when did you go to Europe?
Well, first question first. How I got involved? I was there at that Pitch Strong with Kim. We both had projects we wanted to do ourselves, and we had not known each other whatsoever, never knew either of us existed. And when I heard her pitch, I walked over to her and I just point blankly said, I want to work on your project. And she said, oh my God. And it just started from there. And we've been working on it since January 21st, to be exact. That was when the pitch was.
Right.
And the story is going to take us to Europe around February 26th, and we should be finished with the project on May 8th, which is VE Day, and we hope to be standing on the grounds where her grandfather, George E. Blackburn, who was a forward observation officer in the Canadian military, working with the Allies, of course, at that time.
Right. And as I understand it, her grandfather, George, was really, the title sounds much older than he was. Wasn't he quite young, and wasn't he like a bicycle messenger? And
he's actually a forward observation officer, Gene. He was the guy that ran out, exposed to enemy fire. He would take calculations, observations, know where the enemy is at. Then he would run back, give those instructions to the artillery people, and then bring on the artillery.
Right. I think I had heard Kim say when she did a pitch on this, the average lifespan for one of those guys could be 15 minutes.
Actually, for her father,
he was phenomenal.
Her grandfather, it was 11 minutes was the actual figure. Even in my service day, forward observers did not have much time, and minutes was the way it was gauged.
Right. And the longer every minute longer they were out there, every minute they were closer to being killed. Oh, yeah. And then there was a bicycle involved, didn't he? Used to use a bike sometimes to do some of this?
Well, I would surmise, and if I was doing his job, you'd look like a civilian riding on a bike, going from town to town.
Right.
Of course, probably looking for something to eat, buying something, and casually taking in all these observations so that when he reported back, he knew exactly where to deposit the rounds on top of the enemy soldiers.
Right. Well, it'll be very interesting to see the footage when you get back, because I'm following this from its pitch. First time I heard about it, through knowing you and meeting with you and Kim. And as a film commissioner for Sarasota County, my job is to help everybody. We don't cost anybody anything, so we give advice and we listen and we help them learn and we make suggestions and we offer connections. And it's very gratifying for my office to see projects go forward like this, especially ones that involve 5 filmmakers. I want to ask Mia here. Mia, how did you and your husband get involved in this? And there are a couple of other filmmakers that aren't here, right? There's Matthew and Justin, Matthew
so
Scott.
A total of 6 of us, along with Kim.
Oh.
So there's 6.
So 5.
And all 6 of us will be going to Europe, which will be very cool.
That's great. So how did you each kind of get drafted into this, or what attracted you to doing it?
Well, Jay and I were actually we watched Band of Brothers on Amazon Prime, which was really cool.
Right.
And then I helped Gus Molasses with his Facebook Live show at the movies with Gus Molasses. And that Thursday, Kim and Dave were on his show, and I have had classes with Kim in the past. And
At State College of
yes,
Florida?
At State College of Florida. And she asked if we were interested in helping, and I was definitely on board. And yeah, Jay's also very helpful. And
That's because you're newlyweds and he wants to make you happy, right?
yes. And that's how we got involved. And I've been really honored and blessed to be able to be a part of this wonderful opportunity.
And what a great story. I think it will be really a very moving documentary. And I predict, you heard it here first, I predict that not only will it be a great documentary, but it'll be picked up eventually and made into a feature film. And maybe they'll get George Clooney to play the grandfather. I don't know. Who knows? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Oh. So, Jay, what are you going to be doing on all of this? And do you have a principal role, or are you all just sort of pitching in, doing whatever needs to be done?
Well, for me personally, I came down to Florida to marry Mia. So for me, I was looking for a job, and I kind of just started coming to these meetings. And the more meetings you go to, the more you get drawn in. The more there's a million things to do when you're making a film, and anything from helping Mia with editing, anything from helping with Dave with the camera, with the sound. My job is to make everyone else's job a little bit easier. And these people are in school, they're multitasking their family, their lives. Me and Mia are kind of at a point where we're probably the most flexible. We're looking for work, we're looking for things to do, and everything that we do, it seems like it helps make the project better. And I think that's what everybody wants, is everyone wants to make it a successful project. And unfortunately, time is something that's probably the most difficult for a lot of people.
Right.
And the more time we seem to put in, it seems like it multiplies. We help a little bit, and then they have plans X, Y, and Z down the line that they already are thinking about, and we can jump on that next plan.
And you're going to get to go to Europe. Woo! You
Yes.
can't complain about that. So let me ask you, Dave, we'll go back to you over here. Funding. How do you go about funding something like this? I know we've spoken about grants and we've spoken about different methods of going out there and finding funds for a documentary. How's it worked out for you, if that's not asking too personal a question?
No, I think it's important that everybody knows. I mean, we are, yes, proverbially we're going after all the grants, the sponsorships, and the donations. But we actually have an Indiegogo site going, the crowdfunding going on. You can reach us there at Victory Journey 2020. Go on our website, victoryjourney.com. You can see all the information there. I encourage everyone to go there to the website and look at Kim's personal journey and personal experience going out after and coming up and with this conception of doing this story for her grandfather. It is very heartwarming, and it's very filmmaking-wise, it's going to be challenged because of the whole purpose for our film is to be able to use it to educate children, because we are no longer teaching them in classroom situations about history.
Right. And you know what they say, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes, that's for sure. And we actually are using a bicycle, which will become a character in the film. And Sugar Bomb is the way it's called, and we're actually getting graphics done on it like you would see on a regular World War II bomber or a fighter plane. We are planning our route that is probably the most intense part of the whole process, because at each station, and I say station because there's so many cities that we're going to, we have to plan individual shot lists of what we're going to do there. And the shot lists are getting longer and longer and longer. So, but
just remember, when you go through those shot lists that get longer and longer and longer, you've got to edit it all.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and one of the things that we're aware of is that, you know, we only have one shot at this. So, yeah, we're going to go after as much as we can get, and I'd rather see it fall on the cutting room floor, so to speak, and not have to worry about going back and doing something again.
Yeah. Well, there's a fine line between having too much and not having enough, and
absolutely.
that's part of the whole filmmaking experience. As experts in filmmaking that I have the honor to interview on this show, people like Brad Battersby from Ringling College, and people like Brad that have made films and so forth, they know you're always seeking that fine line between shooting enough and overshooting too much, because everything costs money. And even if it only costs money in the post-production now with all the digital tools, what kind of equipment are you using?
Well, we have, let's see, we're pretty much all Sony equipment right now. So we're going to be using a Sony FS5 camera. We've got a couple of, we got an AR7. We've got, the proverbial handheld recorders, and GoPros up the yin-yang. I mean, we're going to be doing angles off the bikes and off the motorhomes and the cars, hanging from the trees probably as she drives by.
Right.
So, yeah, we're I think the biggest thing is making sure we've got the right clothing, because it's going to be a little chilly cold up there in
Right.
February. So.
Well, and you always dress in layers, because
Yes,
you can take it off, put
absolutely.
it on, but don't just have one giant
Right,
snow parka
exactly.
and it gets to be 70 degrees and you're, falling unconscious because you're sweating from the heat of your clothing. Yeah. Well, I've seen some very interesting film techniques for indie films that have no money, and usually there's a pickup truck somewhere in there with a guy with a belt around his waist and somebody who's driving, and the person in the middle is holding the guy's belt so he can hang out the window with the camera, getting those moving shots, and it all works, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we chose a motorhome with a very large windshield. Again, we can be protected, but we also have a mount for the outside of the on the windshield that we can put the camera on and remotely control it from inside.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's, it's...
Plus, then you also have your own snacks and
Right,
place
right.
where you can sleep and a
potty
refrigerator.
stops
Yeah,
and all
exactly.
that kind of stuff.
That sounds pretty well
Yeah,
planned.
yeah.
Pretty well planned. Now, how are you going to get the motorhome over there? Are you just going to rent one when you get there?
We'll rent one there. In fact, we've just been doing that research, just renting, finding. It's rather, they have a rather unique system there. There's only a couple of hours a weekend that you can pick up the motorhome and drop it off. You can do it 7 days a week. You can order one, but you only can pick it up between the hours of 2 and 5 on a Friday afternoon, which is some odd thing about rental. And I'm assuming that they probably have to shuffle the vehicles around from different parts of Europe to get it to the location.
Ah, yes, we take so much for granted over here in the USA, where you have, as much of anything you want, anytime you want, 24/7. Well, there's actually a hotel chain, the W, and they have a WW button on the phone, and it means whatever, whenever. So wouldn't it be great to have a WW button on life?
Yes, it would.
So what do you need most right now? I mean, sounds like you're fairly mobilized in your pre-planning.
And I'm gonna go out there on a limb and just say the same that all filmmakers. I need the money.
Right.
I need the money. It's trickling in, and like it does, and then all of a sudden you get the big donations. All of a sudden drop. I mean, we encountered somebody yesterday at the Veterans Parade here in Sarasota that really surprised us and said they want to be involved, and it was a step back for both of us, because when we were just chatting about it and we didn't expect anything from them, and they just